Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be moderating this session, a very important discussion today. And in terms of what we're trying to discuss today, look, India continues to be in the land of great opportunity. And right now, it's the apple of the investor's eye. In 2021, the Indian startups have raised nearly about $20 billion, and there are 19 unicorns. So, there is a significant growth happening in the country. There is, on the heels of this, a continued rise in the adoption of technology, particularly in traditional sectors like BFSI, retail, education, manufacturing, and among others. So retail has been the center of the tech revolution in this post-pandemic era. And the rise of the D2C along with e-commerce has further bolstered the growth in the sector. To learn more on how investors see this landscape and its evolution in the future, today we have two marquee names from the global investors corridor. First, I'd like to introduce and welcome Mr. Manoj Kohli, who is the country head for Softbank India. Manoj is supporting one of the largest investors in India, which is Softbank Group and the Softbank Vision Fund, and their 20 plus AI and digital focused portfolio companies. He not only helps entrepreneurs and CEOs, but also coaches them for execution of growth strategies and profitable business models to enable their businesses to scale to their full potential. Before this, Manoj was the managing director at Bharti Airtel, which is today the number third telco in the world. He was the managing director and CEO of the international operations as well. Manoj joined Airtel in 2002 and was at the operations for nearly about 8 years. And he grew the customer base of Airtel from a mere 2 million to about 150 million users. And Manoj was judged as the Telecom Man of the Year as well as the Telecom Person of the Year. So it's a privilege to have Manoj with us on this panel today. My other guest on the panel is Mr. Sudhir Sethi, who is the founder and chairman of Chiratae Ventures. Chiratae Ventures, also formerly known as IDG Ventures in India, is a leading VC firm, and with AUM of nearly about $950 million. They are based out of Mangalore. And Sudhir has been one of the pioneers in investments in India since 1998. He and his team have advised on investments to close to about 100 plus firms across deep tech, digital consumer, enterprise software, fintech, health tech, you name it all. And some of his key investments include Flipkart, FirstCry, Lenskart, Policy Bazaar. So, plenty on Sudhir's hand, and it'll be a pleasure to hear with him. On his board, on Chiratae's board is also leading tech VCs like Mr. Ratan Tata, Mr. Chris Gopalakrishnan, Bruno, and Manish Chokasi on his global board of advisors. With that, I just wanted to hand it over to Sudhir and to Manoj for a quick word, and then I can take on some of the specific questions.
I think the whole consumer space is something which is very interesting. India has a tailwind right now. There's a lot of access to consumers, which has been done already. E-commerce is right up there on the top. I think there are a few things which are happening. There are certain business trends, which I think is very, very crucial. Today, as far as business trends are concerned, historically, commerce has been focused on commerce. And we are looking at now content and community emerging as we move forward. And I think these three working together will expand the market in the Indian markets as such. Within the business trend, we are also seeing some of the e-commerce companies which used to be horizontal earlier are now vertical. You see, if you see our portfolio, a lot of verticals there. But like in Lenskart or FirstCry or Policy Bazaar, but we're also looking at health as a vertical where a lot of consumer action will take place. We're also looking at many of these consumer companies going international. In fact, many consumer companies have taken the step to go to not only surrounding countries, but also access the US market space. I think that's a very interesting trend which is happening. It's a small trend. It's not a tsunami right now, but I do believe that the cohort of investors and entrepreneurs coming in would take this to the next level. And there are reasons for that. There are technology trends in virtual reality, in voice, in AI, in whole robotics and warehousing. I think there's so many of them, I think, which are making this very interesting. And last but not the least is the focus on the last, I would say, 18 months, where because of the pandemic, there are certain consumer trends which consumer behavior trends and buying trends, which to my mind have have a permanent nature of change. And we can talk about that a bit later. I'm not getting into the whole B2B space in SaaS, but fundamentally, there's so much happening in the Indian market. If the growth of the Indian market in investing, venture investing and exits and growth of entrepreneurial activity was 15 degrees in the last 5-6 years, I do believe in the next 6 years or so, it's going to be 60 degrees.
I look at India very deeply because I've been to the deep end of the market. I feel that we have just touched the retail technology has just touched the top of the market. I think it has to go very, very deep. And when I say deep, I go back 25 years when I started to build distribution depth in telecom. So I led, initiating 3.5 million retail points all over the country, in 5,000 urban centers, in 5.5 lakh villages. We really went very, very deep into the countryside, more than FMCG companies. And that's where I personally visited thousands and thousands of villages, and I understood how much retail depth India needs, and how much work Unilever, Nestle, and so many other ITC and other companies have done in the last 100 years. Of course, telecom went on their shoulders and went deeper than them because of its reach. Now, I feel that the depth of the market has gone up significantly because of 3G and 4G coverage. I think that coverage has reached 3.5 lakh villages, which means a villager may not have a road, may not have water, may not have power, but has 3G or 4G. And I think that's a fantastic prospect for retail and any digital transaction. Another thing is that out of 1.4 million mobile phones, 650 to 700 million are smartphones. And I think those are data enabled, where you can do digital transactions, whether they are financial transactions or shopping or any other digital transaction. And I feel that is a huge enabler in this retail revolution. On top of that, I feel that in the last 18 months, a major behavior change has happened. And when I say behavior change, I'm not talking of urban cities. I'm not talking of Delhi and Bombay and Gurgaon and Bangalore, etc. I'm talking of small towns. So I had a colleague who went to Haldwani. Haldwani is a small town in UP. And he gave me a detailed report about that town just last week. Now, what he told me actually represents what revolution is happening in retail in India. People are buying, for example, people are doing financial transactions, and people who may not be very educated, maybe housewives also in that town. People are sending money, making payments. People are buying or doing online shopping. People are, for example, buying specs on Lenskart, getting their eyes tested, getting it delivered to their home. So if these trends have reached to small and medium towns of India, I think India is heading for a huge revolution. Now, in the last 18 months, the active online shoppers have tripled from 50 to 150 million. And that is just 18 months. Now, and by the way, US online is, I understand, 210 million, which means that India is maybe 70% of US today. Of course, China is far ahead. China is much bigger. But India could be a number 2 market after China sooner than later. Now, what has happened in the last 18 months? I think that's a very, very crucial issue. And how is it impacting the retail market? How is it impacting the consumer? And that is why I feel from these trends that the future definitely looks brighter. One, that standard products are now being accepted online. Branded products are accepted. Delivery at home is fantastic. People love it because delivery is happening in 48 hours, 72 hours. People have that much patience. Rather than go to a big town, rather than go to a metro city, it's better to wait for 48 hours, 72 hours and get the product or a branded item at your home. And you can return. If you want to return, if you're not happy, you can return. That is also a possibility. Of course, there are some towns where return is very high. Leave out those towns, but normally returns are okay. And on top of that, innovative services, as I was talking about lens card kind of service, very innovative, very unique. Not many countries have that. And last but not the least, affordability. India deserves affordability. India is very large middle class and lower middle class. Therefore, affordability is crucial. Our GDP per capita is lower, much lower than US and China. So, of course, affordable products and services will sell. And the value for money attitude of Indian consumer is being tested. And I think we have passed the test in last 18 months, which means the product and services being offered by e-commerce, by and large, are acceptable. By and large, are within the range, even when there is an income impact during the pandemic, even then it is acceptable. So by and large, I feel that direct to consumer digital market, the retail size has been estimated to about $800 billion to $1 trillion in India. And I think that is what India will be. And of course, if in this decade, the GDP growth rate is averaging 7 to 8%, which I think India can, then we'll cross 5 trillion, we'll maybe go beyond that. And then the per capita GDP will improve and the propensity to buy more online will go up further. So I am optimistic. I feel the technology change of 5G and much more digitization, which is coming in the next few years, will further catalyze this revolution.
Well said, Manoj. I think, yeah, thank you very much. You've literally set the trend, and I think it's lovely to hear you because, I mean, you growing Airtel from that, small subscriber base to 150 million base. So you understand what it is to scale even the startups who are trying to deliver this great, trend in the country. Frankly, where do you see, the technology, the role of technology today playing in all this? So, Manoj, if I may come to you, saying then what's the role of technology? Because I think Sudhir very rightly put across, yes, there is health as well, which has come in, there is agri, there is, diversity, there is employment, which is happening and to the remotest areas as well. So what is the role of technology at this point? The importance.
I feel that there is a different role technology has to play in US, Europe, Japan, Korea, China, and it's different in India. Because our physical infrastructure is still weak. The physical infrastructure in all these countries I mentioned is rock solid. And because of our weakness of physical infrastructure, technology leap is taking place. And I remember in 95, when I was part of the founding team of Telecom, we had 35 million landlines. And from 35 million landlines, we took a leap to GSM. And we skipped the analog mobile phones in the middle, which many of the other countries went through for 10 years. But we skipped that 10 years totally and took a leap straight to GSM, which is the best technology. And today, even today, that's the best. So same leap will happen in technology in many, many areas because physical infrastructure of India still is weak. And I feel that way, bank branches, ATMs are not required. because people have mobile phones. And that mobile phone is the ATM and the bank branch. So all the developed countries who have gone through that physical phase, I think is great. But for them, it is a transition. For us, it is not a transition. We are going straight to the technology of today. So that is fantastic. I feel that in the coming 10 years, India will take a technology leap of maybe more than 100 years. So it will be a huge leap. In the last 5-10 years, we've already done it. On top of that, the technology leap is coming into in renewable energy, in electric vehicles, in education. What I love the most is education. I mean, small girls and boys who really can't afford to be educated. Schools are too far away. They have to walk 10, 20 miles for the schools. Because at Airtel, we started more than 350 schools in villages. And I used to go to teach. And kids have to walk 10, 20 kilometers every day, morning and evening. Now it is online. And they're getting the best. For example, Akash Institute, I'm just taking an example. Such kind of tutorship is happening wherever you are. You could be in the most isolated village in Himalayas, or in Bihar, or in Guwahati, outside Guwahati, or in Srinagar. I'm just saying that's a fantastic leap India is taking. And I'm not saying the leap is over. It will take us another 4 or 5 years at least to take that leap. And I think that will enable the country to move ahead with far more confidence, not only in terms of digital market growth, but also in terms of confidence as consumers, that you can do it with your own hands on your own phone. The other thing I wanted to mention was that segments of the society, like Sudhir also mentioned, women, older generation, senior citizens, who were kind of, to some extent, cut off, but today are technologically enabled. For example, my mother, 83, she asked me a few years back that, what is more expensive? Is voice call more expensive or FaceTime more expensive? So I said FaceTime. FaceTime is less expensive and voice call is, she was surprised. She said, then I'll only use FaceTime. So she only uses FaceTime and she talks to my sisters or her sisters. She says FaceTime because she can look at the face, she can talk, she can see the expressions. Now, obviously, that generation was cut off. But now the satsang which my mother does is on video, on her phone. Now, same thing applies to a lot of housewives, a lot of segments of society which were not as inclusive as they are today. And in the next 5-10 years, you will see much more of inclusion happening. I feel that a couple of other things. One, the startups which are running, I have about 20-25 portfolio companies of Softbank Vision Fund, which I support. And I work with the entrepreneurs and leadership teams very closely. The passion they have for making technology simple. I think the issue is making technology simple for the lowest strata of society. I think that is the passion, which I love. And they are going into vernacular, they're going into all kinds of simplicity so that everyone can use it. Everyone can use it without even a thought. It should be so simple. So that is what they love. And I feel because of competition, and which is different from many of the other developed countries where winner takes it all, India doesn't have that. India has competition in digital arena also, just like in other arena. So I feel that is helping these startups to become better, to become distinct, to become superior, to become easy, to become seamless, and more convenient for the customer. And whatever, not only the youth customer of millennial generation, but also older customer, or also customer who may not be very well educated. And I think that's why international growth, and Softbank, of course, does promote international globalization of every startup, every investment we do in India. And we are doing that slowly and steadily for everyone. But it will happen because India market is more complex than any other market in the world. So if somebody has really had a victory in Indian market, going out and really making a tweak in your business model, making a tweak in your product, and winning outside India and other major markets will be. I remember, for example, when Bhavish launched Ola in Sydney. First day, second day, we had a chat, and he said, "This is fantastic. It's easier than India, and the per ride dollar is much better." So the point I'm trying to make is that India is a tough market, a complex market. If our passionate entrepreneurs can win here, and they will win here, they're passionate, they're great, they'll win the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think examples of our stack, the India stack, the UPI, the Aadhaar, the fintech stack. I think those are success stories which can be replicated. So, your views on technology. What parts everybody hears about AI being implemented now on these platforms. So, how does it play an important role as what you see? Are we doing certain things differently in India vis-a-vis what people are doing abroad? So, I mean, any thoughts on that?
No, absolutely. I think you just touched upon it, but I was going to mention on the technology stack, India has something called India Stack, which is UPI, RuPay, etc., which is a public infrastructure. And that fundamentally means that it democratizes the rise of the entrepreneur, and which is very unique in India, which does not exist outside the country, number one. And number two is, if you look at that infrastructure, which is already available, and it's like inconsequential in cost, if you look at it, right? You go to the next layer, which is, if you divide again, go back to the commerce side of it, we are talking consumer facing. In consumer facing, you have, right, AR, VR, data sciences, the fact that a company like Lenskart, where we are with Softbank there, is using, the moment you take a picture of your face, suddenly 10 eyeglasses come onto your screen and say, hey, these are the things which suit you. That's deep data science, right? Fundamentally, that to me is very, very crucial. And that's being used in a lot of companies. If people are going to companies like Nestaway to find rental homes, there are hotspots. You know that in a Koramangala, it takes 4 days for a house to move. But how do you use virtual reality to find out, right, whether I want this house? So instead of going to 20 houses before, you use virtual reality to shorten that to 2 houses and say, I'm going to just look at these 2 houses now. I think those are simple examples, but very powerful examples, which are already available. Distribution is a very, very important. Supply chain integration and distribution is very important for onboarding the so many suppliers in the country. India is aspirational right now. Packaging, for instance, is very poor. There are Bizongo has integrated 1,000+ packagers in the country to build India's largest integrated packaging company. Now that is a consumer facing a business for e-commerce, because you go to a product guy and say, hey, there's some good packaging, safety, sustainability that's coming in slowly, because you don't want the cost to increase. So technology can make sure that the varied distribution patterns of supply chain in the country, which are very fragmented, come onto technology platforms, and then you integrate them for lowest cost. Let's say packaging as an example. I mean, I can take an example of, even for the farmer, technology platform using the whole space of the losses which are there in grain storage as an example. And that's being done. There are many companies who do that. So you have to look at it, to my mind, we look at it from solving a challenge, identify what the challenge is and solve it. Okay. Whether it is in supply chain, distribution chain, consumer facing, and then you go back into the warehousing. I mean, there are automation in warehousing happening, which never used to happen before, because if you're shipping 100,000 packages a day, you can't do it manually, right? So to me, that's very, very crucial. And then on top of that, you have this fundamental, space of consumer commerce, community, and content. I think very few companies, commerce is all over the place, small and big, there's no question about it. but content is just emerging and communities very few. I mean, First Cry has one of the largest mothers community in the country, right? Now, the moment you do that, then the stickiness of consumers using content and community for commerce improves in the country. And that is all technology based. You're building communities digitally. You can't build communities. And these are not deep tech. These are simple technologies which have to be used and encourage people to come in. And the fact that 60% of India is still less than 35 years of age, I think lends itself to building communities as we move forward. So the scope is absolutely high. I think there is also a space for deep tech coming in. Okay, we are finding a lot of deeper technologies being embedded into. I mean, it's very simple. How do you enable a consumer to find a pair of jeans, right, in a much simpler manner than perhaps what it exists today, right? You know, is it an indigo color? Is it a blue color? Is it torn jeans? Right? Is it three clicks away? Is it 2 clicks away? Those are simple things. But I think the sophistication of that, especially for offline retailers, and I want to come to that, offline retailers will have to go online, and that is where technology usage will come again, because we are not talking just about e-commerce as it exists today. The fact that Lenskart is bigger than Titan Eye is because they've used technologies to grow to that level in online. But then for offline retailers large to compete with online retailers, they have to adopt technologies and online communities and commerce and content. So to me, that's another very big market emerging in the country. And it is, as Manoj said, there's not a winner take all. There are, in every sector, there are 2, 3, 4 big players, whether you take food, whether you take, eyewear, whether you take baby products, whether you take any other sector. So the question is, can offline retailers use technology to become much larger than what they've done and much faster pace? So that the availability of technology, especially open public domain, is absolutely there. It's not. I mean, it's a democratized world right now. Overall, entrepreneurs will do it faster because they don't have a legacy. They don't have this whole issue of this is how you do it.
Lovely. I think with that, I just want to say a very big thank you, Manoj. Thank you, Sudhir.